start the meeting.
Now,
Let the record indicate all board members are present, including Superintendent Haiti Robinson, Clerk Tanya Baker, and Attorney Scott Mullins. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, there are no changes to the agenda.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We now have the approval of the agenda. That leads us down to public comment.
A period of time for public comment will be designated on the meeting agenda during which the public may comment on issues related to public education. The Dickens County Board believes that the citizens of the county should be heard, and this is an acceptable format for receiving public comment. After the public comment section of the meeting is closed, the public shall not be allowed to participate in general board member discussions regarding agenda items. Public participation with the board members regarding agenda items can be disruptive, and the practice is prohibited by Robert's Rules of Order. It is the desire of the school board to treat each member of the public fairly and equally. Allowing one individual to participate while excluding others is unfair. The board may hold such public hearings as may be necessary to allow the public to more fully express their concerns, or the board may place the public comment section of any meeting at the end of the meeting to allow additional public comments. While we do not wish to restrict the free expression of opinion, we feel that certain restrictions may be necessary so that the order and reasonable standards may be maintained. We ask that the following standards be adhered to. The speaker will be recognized by the chair. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes. Speakers will refrain from the use of vulgarity or profanity and will avoid negative or embarrassing comments directly toward specific children or students. Board members should not respond to issues presented by speakers unless clarification is necessary. Matters of concern raised under public comment will be referred to the proper official for investigation and future board consideration if necessary.
Okay, first on the list is Kathy Music.
Robinson, members of the board. My name is Kathy Music. I'm the regional representative with Virginia Professional Educators. And first, I'd just like to congratulate the whole school system for a great start to a crazy year. Very little uptick in cases due to going back to school. And yesterday, I was able to stop at each school and drop off some brochures. And I talked to every secretary, I guess, as they came to the door to accept those. And they were very bright-eyed and said everything was going well and it had been a good start. So congratulations. Also, on your tables, I gave everyone a brochure about our organization. If you'll open it up and look at the third sheet of paper in there, there's a thing that tells about our grants and scholarships. We are a nonprofit, and twice a year we give away all the money that's left to teachers. And the grants it's up to $500. A teacher or employee could write a grant if there was a class they wanted to take or some kind of a thing that they wanted to attend to learn about, how to do their job better, or if there are things that they need in their classroom. I know last year I think there were 4 grant recipients here in Dickinson County. I'd love to see that grow more. And just because you got it last year doesn't mean that you can't get it again. There's a girl that works at Dungannon Elementary School, and she has gotten it 7 years in a row because all the money is given away. So please, if you know a teacher or know somebody, encourage them to apply. The fall submission is November 15th. Thank you, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Music. The next name on the list is Phyllis Mullins.
Good afternoon. I'm Phyllis Mullins. I'm president of the Dickinson Education Association. Right now, we haven't got to start our monthly meetings, but hopefully I hope to in the near future, even if I have to do those virtually. I have sent out information to our members on our mini grants. Also, I usually apply for a TOPS grant, and I have gotten up to almost $4,000 to spend on my members. So also, we are looking closely into stopping the reduction of any public funding. We work very hard in the General Assembly to try and keep public school funding on top. So if you know anybody who we give away the $500 mini grants, and I've sent that information out, but they can go on our website and get that information also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. The next name on the list is Carol Edwards.
I guess this is afternoon. Good afternoon, school board members. I ain't got a lot to say, but I just want to, I understand that the decision's already been made that the school is going to build at Ridgeview. Am I correct? Is it already, that's already been made, am I correct?
No, sir. That decision has not been made. Is that correct, Mr. Mullins?
That's correct. My understanding is that we're doing the due diligence work right now to be sure that it can be built here.
In other words, it's already been made. Am I correct to assume that?
No.
It hasn't?
No, sir. The contractors that are working with us are doing their due diligence on the site, checking, and I'm sure we'll get a report from Mr. Ellswick and Mr. and Abram Quisenberry, but they are checking the site for any possible issues that would not allow us to build a site here or the school at Ridgeview.
So the site hasn't been picked yet?
No, sir, not by a board vote. The board, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Mullins, but the board voted to do its due diligence at Ridgeview for a possible new elementary school, but that decision has not been made yet.
Okay, thank you. I thought it had already been made. According to the paper, it looked like it had already been made. But I just, and I just like to say that as school board members, I was always taught that we were to furnish our kids with an equal opportunity under the law. We're supposed to give them an equal opportunity. And there's no way, if that school is built at Ridgeview, can we give our kids an equal and fair opportunity? There is no way. You cannot do it. Because in the first place, by your own you're going to have a falling away of kids. I don't know. They say upwards of 100, and that's going to cost a lot of. That's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money to replace that. And so I think that our school board members should take consideration of the kids. The kids is what we're here for. So if we're going to alienate them right off, then we're not doing what we should. And all you have to do is find an alternative place to Ridgeview, and there is. And that is my recommendation, that the school board don't to put it. It's for the kids, and if you're honestly and truly want to furnish all kids in Dixon County an equal opportunity, then there's no way that you can vote to put that school at Ridgeview. And that's not all I got to say. And I appreciate you listening to me. And I hope that when it comes down to vote for where it's going to go, that you will take in consideration that it can still be good. You won't have all these problems. And we can go forward as a school system, and we can go forward supporting kids, the general public. And I appreciate you, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. That's the only name we have on the list. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I had to sit there tonight and not get up. But if Mr. Edwards is going to keep going, then I don't see anywhere to turn back. Like he said, the paper, in the paper it had on there, like it or not, it's a done deal. That was the very first sentence. And I'm telling you, that was like a stab in the heart. So if I understand that it's all interim, but maybe the general public doesn't understand that it's all interim, and all the general public thinks there's no sense in coming, there's no sense in letting you know how I feel, because the decision has been made, which is the perception out there, is that the decision has been made. The paper's putting it out there. Everything everything you look at, the perception is that the decision has been made and that the decision is for Ridgeview. You can see that I'm still supporting the Hayside-Sand Lake area. And what I would like to remind you of is that you guys are the ones who hired the company that is looking at sites. You gave them 2 sites to look at. You could have given them more sites to look at, but you did not. So when they come back and in a very short time eliminated one of the sites using information that has been public for years, and they're coming back and saying the only place to build it is on Ridgeview, then that is not on them. That is on you, because you only gave them 2 to look at. The information about Clinchco, I have a copy of that, and I've had that copy, I would say, for a good 4 years. That information is not surprising. That information is not new. People may not know that. Hopefully someone's watching now and more people will know it. That information about it being a possible environmental hazard is not new. You could have asked them to look at Sand Lake. You did not. You could have asked them to look at Backbone. You did not. They were pretty fast at eliminating sites, so if you want to say it would have cost more money, well, you know, they're working pretty fast. They're like you. They want to get this school built. So it's all interim right now, and we'll just say that it's all interim. But you know what? You guys have got your mind made up. Don't try to act like you don't. You got your mind made up. But what it is I'm going to still be here because you have not said the C word. And if you ever do say the C word, consolidation, then we'll be here again to see exactly what it is you're going to do. Am I just about done? A minute 20. Well, I don't know. I'm just going to stand here for a minute 20 and let you look at my shirts. But I won't. So, thank you, and maybe now my leg will quit jiggling.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. That soon brings us down to consent agenda item 3.
Dr. Lyle, that includes the approval of the minutes, special call meeting on August the 18th and August the 26th. It includes the vendor payment checks, school activity fund, the revenue expenditure summary, and the new elementary school construction invoices.
Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We might wait and do them all at one time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Information for the board is our next item. It's just an information of a VSBA conference on October the 6th. The top 10 things every board member should know about parliamentary procedure. If you are interested in attending, please let Tanya Baker know, and she will be delighted to register our board members. That will be a virtual webinar, a live webinar for our board members to participate. Thank you, sir.
Did we, in the motion to approve the consent agenda, did we approve all the listing there?
I think, yes, sir, I think
all
we
the
did.
invoices and everything? Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't think that there were any
Anything?
comments or questions
Okay,
regarding that.
okay. Okay,
We're ready now for good news from our schools.
right.
And we have a couple of items, good news from our schools. First of all, I don't see Sandra Rasnick. Ms. Rasnick, are you here? Ms. Rasnick is retiring, and she has served the Dixon County Schools for 32 years, and she retired this summer. And so we would like to recognize Ms. Sandra Rasnick. She was a pre-K teacher. Is that correct, Mr. Mullins? Thank you, sir. Kindergarten teacher at Irvington Elementary School. So congratulations to Mrs. Rasnick. Thank you for the job you have done. I know that she will be missed by the Irvington community, by the Irvington School, but also by the Dixon County Public Schools. And I'll personally miss Sandra very much also. She was a very good teacher, and we wish her the best in this retirement. I also have something special that's not included in your packet. I just received this from Mr. Compton, the principal at Ridgeview High School, and he has announced that Grayan M. Martin has been named, one of our students, has been named a commended student in the 2020-21 National Merit Scholarship Program. A letter of commendation from the school and the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, which conducts the program, will be presented by the principal to this scholastically talented senior. About 34,000 commended students throughout the nation are being recognized for their exceptional academic promise. Although they will not continue in the 2021 competition for National Merit Awards, commended students placed among the top 50,000 scores of more than 1.5 million students who entered the 2021 competition by taking the 2019 preliminary SAT test. Those being named commended students have demonstrated outstanding potential for academic success. These students represent a valuable national resource, recognizing their accomplishments as well as the key role their school played in academic development. We hope that this recognition will We hope that this recognition will help broaden their educational opportunities and encourage them as they continue their pursuit of academic success. So congratulations to Graham M. Martin. And before we go much farther, do we have any calls for public comment? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. So congratulations to Graham. Congratulations to his family, to Ridgeview High School, and I thank you, Mr. Compton, for sharing this wonderful news with us. It's great when one of our students places among the top 50,000 scores of the 1.5 million students who took the preliminary SAT test. That's just tremendous achievement. Congratulations. Our next item on this agenda is it's just an update on the reopening of our schools. And from all indication, it appears that we are having a good beginning of school under the COVID pandemic restriction. I'd like to, as I've shared with the board in emails and in discussions, it has not been perfect. Each day brings its new challenges and questions and hurdles to overcome, but the health and safety of our students and staff, while trying to provide a quality instructional program, remain the two main priorities. I'm delighted to report that the plexiglass installing the barriers has been completed this week. The bottle fillers are installed, Our custodial staff is doing an excellent job in maintaining and deep sanitizing our buildings. Our students and staff are wearing masks, maintaining the social distance, hand washing often, and helping to clean their classrooms before and after each class. Our cafeteria staff is distributing meals to our students on Tuesdays and Fridays, and then provide a parent pickup on Wednesdays for 100% remote. Our teachers are extremely conscientious and diligent in learning themselves to provide instruction in this hybrid instructional program along with the 100% remote. As of Friday, September the 18th, 1,060 students, or 53%, are participating in a hybrid instructional environment, and 906 students, or 46%, students are participating in a 100% remote instructional. Each child has been assigned a device for instruction. And may I say that this number is very fluid. Today we received 3 requests from virtual students to return to hybrid students. We're taking each case on a case-to-case basis, and if there is safety, if we can bring the child back and still maintain the 6-foot distance strategy, not only in the classroom but on the buses, we are considering to allow them to return. One of the most significant challenges in providing instruction to both our hybrid and 100% remote families and students are with those that have little or no internet access. We continue to work through possible solutions and easier ways to provide instruction on flash drives and Chromebooks, but this has been a work in progress, and quite frankly, it's been a frustrating one. Another challenge has been providing instruction to a large number of virtual students, specifically in grades 6 through 8. And again, we are working through the problem with Ridgeview Middle School staff, the technology department, and our instructional technology resource teacher for possible ways to work through the increase in numbers. One of our immediate goals is to prepare all our schools to go virtual in the event of an increased COVID-19 numbers, and we have to close for 1 or 2 weeks or if snow day becomes virtual learning. This is our goal for September and October. Our main goal is to bring back all our students. We know that while hybrid and 100% remote are valuable instructional tools at this time, we also know the value of face-to-face instruction while interacting with staff, teachers, and other students. For younger children who learn best by hands-on experiences and close interactions with teachers and older students, we believe the face-to-face instruction is optimal. Since the beginning of the school year, and we will have been in school a month tomorrow, we've had a total of 7 cases. 2 cases of students and 5 cases of staff. This week, so far, and that could change in 5 minutes, we've had no cases, and last week we had no cases to report. We continue to monitor the COVID cases daily. We consult with the Virginia Department of Health daily. We keep our school board staff and community informed, and we do plan our task force of building administrators and also central office staff have had conversations and discussions about a plan to bring students back, possibly 4 days in a row. We would like to look at the logistics of that. One of the issues that concerns us the most is that when we bring back students in cohort A and cohort B, it may require that students wear masks from the time that they get on the bus to the time that they get off the bus in the afternoon, because we cannot maintain the 6-foot distance if we bring back students in cohort A and cohort B, and if we bring back any of the virtual students either. So we're working through the logistics of that. Of course, that is a decision for the board to consider. What we are proposing is that we continue with this current schedule until the end of the 9 weeks, which will be October the 27th. Is that correct, Mr. Mullins? 26th, to look at the end of the first 9 weeks. And then begin bringing students back in stages. Monitoring our numbers, looking at what we can actually logistically do safely, bring back students in pre-K through 5, and monitoring those numbers of cases and the social distancing and all the things that we're having to do. Stage 2, probably 1 week to 10 days later, would be back to have students return in grades 6 through 8, 4 days. And then after that, then bring back 4 days our students in 9 through 12. So our goal would be, with this plan, would be that by the end of the first semester, we hopefully will have students back 4 days a week for face-to-face instruction, while also offering the virtual instruction for our students. Again, plans are plans, and we have plans, and we can certainly discuss this further with our board. I am very proud of what our staff has done, all of our staff. We've all worked, as you know, they've all worked very hard. I'm especially proud that we are all trying very hard to keep the safety of our staff and our students a high priority, while still trying to maintain and provide a quality instructional program. But there are challenges. There are challenges to what we're doing now, and there's certainly challenges to bringing students back 4 days a week. So I just would like us to open up discussion or any questions you may have, or anything that we can provide further clarification.
I'm glad that we're looking ahead, and you know, I definitely understand the challenges, and we want to, you know, whatever decisions we make, you want to do it with safety in mind, and definitely on the same page as far as, you know, the optimal learning environment is kids in the classroom.
Yes.
So, you know, the timeline for that is tough. I think it's a good suggestion as far as the transition period being when the next grading period starts. And I agree, it makes sense, you know, that the younger kids would come in first. But, you know, we would need to get the middle school kids and high school kids back in the classroom too as quickly as possible. But you know, I know the logistics. I know there's some tough things to deal with that.
And I didn't mention, but while we would bring one group back with the board's approval, the rest of the groups would be hybrid. We would still continue doing what we're doing, and then slowly, you know, not only work through the 6-foot distance strategy, the lunch strategies, the bus strategies. We would just get into that slowly. After discussion with our board, with our central office staff and our building principals, we had a lengthy phone conference this week to discuss that. They also felt that having a plan such as this made better sense to them, because many of them said, we're just now getting into the hybrid. We're just kind of getting learning that. And The other issue with that was we know that we have low numbers of COVID in Dixon County, but one is too much. We all know that. But, you know, just the 5 staff members, the one student that had COVID did not even, this was at the beginning of the year, didn't even enter school. So, you know, you can see that people are taking this, our staff, all staff members are taking this very seriously. So I know that the board is trying to weigh the public, what the public and parents would like for us to do with what's best for children, and then balancing that on the safety issue also. And so it's difficult, and you know, I commend you for your leadership in that, but I know that it has to be difficult for you, and to make those decisions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm also looking forward to increasing number of in-house students, in-house days and students when it appears to be safely to do so.
So do we need this in a motion?
I don't think we do. I didn't bring it up to the board as a motion. You can certainly have a motion if you like, Mr. Mullins,
That's okay.
but
We don't need
I
it.
didn't have it as an action. Things can change 5 minutes from now.
You're speaking on a tentative basis, and this is the recommendation for now.
Correct. It may change. Looking at the data, I think if you saw the matrix from Dr. Cantrell, the matrices are improving. I'd like to see it improve a little bit more. But Mr. Mullins, I didn't put this in it just as a tentative plan, knowing that it could change tomorrow. I'd like to revisit this possibly in a couple of weeks, or, you know, toward the end of the 9 weeks, and give us time, logistics, you know, to do it well. As I've shared with you before, my greatest concern is that we jump, as a school division, that we jump into something and we're not quite ready. And I felt that with the hybrid, we were as ready as we could be as far as the safety issues. But when parents talk to you and say, you know, the remote is frustrating, when teachers share that with you, it's true. It's just it's frustrating for everyone. And so we're all learning as we go along. Again, trying to balance the quality of instruction and keeping children and staff safe. And I'm not sure that I know, and as I shared with our principals yesterday, I'm conflicted as to where that balance is. But I know that the science is that we keep our children 6 feet apart, that they wear masks, and when children come back, all of those mitigation strategies may not be possible to keep. In the classroom, if they're not now, our children, if you see them, they travel down the hallway and they've got, you know, mask on and all of that. When they go into the classroom, they can take the mask off unless their teacher comes near them or they're near another student. With 4 days a week and bringing Group A, Group B, and everyone back, or more virtual students, then we don't have that. We don't have that luxury. It's not a luxury, but we don't have that option. And so it's a lot to think about, little ones with masks on, and it's just, it's difficult. So, any other comments or questions, or, you know, I applaud.
I think a lot of parents, you know, will have some issues with trying to keep a mask on a young child. You know, that's, some don't want to do that. Even keeping the mask on a small child can be difficult. I don't want to have this thing on myself right now, so, but I think that's an issue that's, our parents will have to make that determination, you know, if we can get back in. And then, you know, you spoke a little bit about, you know, once we go away from the 6 foot mitigation, and keeping that distance, definitely mask wearing all day long is part of that.
Yes.
You know, and that's, goes across the board, whether that's from pre-K to, 12th grade, and then not even our teachers kind of have to do that. You get a nice luxury at 6 foot that as long as you don't get within 6 foot for 15 minutes, but can you speak to maybe with that 3 foot mitigation process, if there is what's the difference in saying our 6 foot distance and we have a suspected or a confirmed case in a classroom or on a bus versus 3 foot mitigation strategy?
Well,
For the health department, what will they be telling us that we need to do?
And I'd like to ask Mr. Setzer and Ms. Edwards to help me, because they work on our team with our nurse. But whenever we get a case reported, what the health department tells us is this: did they keep 6 feet distance? Is that correct? And did they wear a mask for longer than 15 minutes? Those are the 3 criteria. Am I correct? Am I correct, Mr. Setzer? Correct. And so that's always the check mark.
Right.
Okay, that's always the goal. Okay, or the question that we get asked. As I've shared with the board before, we're not medical personnel. We have wonderful, excellent medical personnel on our staff, but we are not medical personnel, and we're not making medical decisions. And so we pick up the phone. Our nurse coordinator, Debbie Dotson, does an excellent job, and she will say, let's call the health department. So that's why we call them, several times a day. Every day is a new day, and I can share with you that every situation is different. There's a different twist to it. There's a different, something's different about it. But to be in school, and again, I'm just very thankful and very humble when I say this, but to have 5 cases, really 1 child in 4 weeks, that's not great, but that indicates that I hope we're trying to do everything we can. And our families are helping us, our community is helping us, our citizens are working with us. And Mr. Setzer, can you come can you come just a little bit to the front, sir? You're a little difficult to hear, I'm sorry.
And I guess maybe just to clarify my question is once we're in 3 foot, is that considered, exposure?
Well, once you're within 3 foot, they recommend that we have face masks on at all times.
Right.
The board may recall that the American Pediatrics Association, that was their recommendation when they first come out. They said you could go back to school within 3 foot as long as you wore a mask. Of course, the CDC VDH recommends that we maintain 6 feet, and with that distance, they don't require a mask. I don't, honestly, as Ms. Robinson said, we're not medical folks, so I don't know how the health department would react if there was a positive case and somebody's within 3 foot of them. It could very well be that they quarantine those individuals.
Yes.
We've not been there yet, so we don't know how they're going to actually carry out their tracing and their investigation.
And I'm sorry I didn't understand your question, Mr.
No, it's
Nixon.
fine.
But within 6 foot, the recommendation is that they do wear a mask. So if we do go back, I'm sure we'll have situations where the students and even the faculty will have to wear a mask at all times, just because of the spacing.
Even at 6 feet, we have to have a class outlay, and we have to know where every child is sitting. The same child sits there Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Children just can't sit, because if we do have a case, then the first thing they ask is, who are the children around them? So.
And of course, they have the recommendations, you want to keep them in the same pods, same classrooms as much as
Yes.
possible, just in case there is a positive case where the tracing can be carried, or where you can eliminate the spread as much as possible. And that's not easy to do in the high school. As a matter of fact, you can't do it because of the switching of classes.
But they do wear masks, and
They do, yes.
thank you, Mr. Hicks. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine, and I guess, you know, maybe on the same note is I just worry that, or wonder, if we go into that 3-foot mitigation strategy, that will we not see more kids quarantined, and maybe more teachers have to be out, and those kind of things would be a concern,
It is,
especially
yes.
with folks that maybe not have a ton of sick days built up and those kind of things, and then just finding someone to actually be a substitute in that class
Yes.
if the class wasn't entirely quarantined, you know.
And that has become an issue, because as we talked to our principals, that was a comment, that we have wonderful substitutes, but they're like, I'm not certain if I want to come back and be a substitute, or during this time, or I'm not sure if, some of our aides didn't return. So as I said, I'm finding that balance, it was difficult. And I know that with school divisions around us going in that direction, and I understand, it's a tremendous amount of pressure. It's knowing everyone is wanting to do the right thing. It's just difficult to know what that right thing is.
I think with the mask, you have more challenges with the younger the student you have, you'd have those challenges all the way up, but, you're thinking in the high school level, you may be able to accomplish some of that, 3-foot mitigation a little easier with the mask. Has there been discussion or thoughts presented about the schedule when we get to 4 days, if we change the schedule, or are we still looking at Wednesday as a shutdown, or is that, I know
Yeah.
different school districts are thinking differently.
And that's a great question, and don't go anywhere.
I was trying to sneak off.
Just stay right there, Mr. Setzer. We also discussed that because now we have that Wednesday as a deep sanitizing, and then giving teachers, because of the number of virtual students, an opportunity to contact virtual students and have that kind of rapport with families and so on. We still will have virtual children. We know that, as much as, and parents are legitimately concerned. Our thought, Mr. Hackney, on that question is that we would still remain on that Wednesday until everybody came back 4 days a week, and then we would move to a Friday virtual cleaning
Okay.
day. But we thought that if we have some children in school on Wednesday and then not, and again, these are all tentative plans.
Yeah.
I'll certainly keep the board informed. But that was the thinking yesterday, is that because that way on Wednesday we can still feed all the virtual children, and not let that be an issue in some of our schools. So since we've started that, but if the board has another direction or another thought or a recommendation, certainly please share them with us, because it takes all of us. It absolutely takes your leadership and all of us to do this and to do it well. We've got children and staff members that are important, and we have to make good decisions for them.
Well, I think everybody wants to get, kids. I think kids being back in the schools, many days we can get them back in there is going to be the best thing for kids. There's no doubt about
Absolutely.
that. I feel like that, with that, parents are going to have to understand we get in the 6 foot, outside the 6 foot, the mask kind of comes as more of a major factor in that, and that's something that they have to consider, and then, and then the possibility of even more quarantines because we're out of the 6 foot mitigation, and then also, I think employees have to consider that as well.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of, we all know that, what we're getting into. Is the timeline, and I understand this right, is the 28th is when we would maybe take this up, or what day would we be thinking about doing this?
We would look at, and Mr. Mullins, I think the end of the first 9 weeks is the 26th. I think we have a board meeting that week. So if the board would like, we could have a plan by stages at that time. We can review the data, first of all, and see where our county is and where we are. We can have a plan presented to the board, and then the board could discuss that plan at their board meeting. I said the 28th. We may need just a little bit more time to get that started, just so that we can communicate to our parents. So definitely the week of the 28th is perhaps start, or later, perhaps start, just having our students in pre-K through 5 begin. We also, when we talked to our principals, we talked about pre-K through 3, and the principals felt that having pre-K through 3 on one schedule and 4th and 5th grade on another schedule, that would create some issues. And so they recommended pre-K through 5, but certainly, if the board sees that differently or wants to go in a different direction, we can do that too. Mr. Setzer, is there anything else?
No. I think you've covered it well.
Thank you. Thank you for staying up here. Any other questions for?
Well, I guess logistically, my question would be is can we pull it off that quick? I mean, I don't know if you've taken, are there desks that have been moved out that would have to be moved back in?
Correct.
And
Correct.
so, I was just looking at, if we wanted to maybe try to pull this off by the 28th, our principals and schools would need to know at least a week ahead of that.
They would.
Or more, maybe.
Or more. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed if we want to consider this up to take up the week of the October the 5th through the 9th, if we wanted to come back and meet, discuss at that time, and that would give you a heads up as, we pull this off on the 28th prior to.
I would agree with that, because like I said, I think, is that the next grading period starts on the 27th?
Yes,
So
sir.
if we looked at starting this plan on that day, if we were back somewhere between October the 5th through the 9th to,
I think the reason we looked at the 28th is that on a Monday. So that would finish that week with cohort B, and then we would start the new week with everyone there.
Ms. Robinson, 2 areas I don't think we spend a lot of time on is transportation and feeding of the kids in the building.
Yes.
And trying to maintain that social distance, especially when you're reading, because you can't eat with a mask on. So it's possible the lunch periods could take more of the day, take a long period of the day. And transportation-wise, it's even possible you'd have to do 2 runs in order to keep the distance in on the bus. So those are some logistics we're looking at as well.
Yes.
So we would still, with bringing these groups back, still try to maintain distance on bus.
As much as we can, yes. They recommend no more than 1 per seat.
Right. That's pretty challenging.
It is very challenging. It is very challenging. There's, as I said, logistically. Our bus drivers have also contributed greatly. They manually take a child's temperature. Every child that gets on the bus, they take their temperature. And we debated that back and forth, and we had some concerns about, what if a child has a temperature and they're on the bus, and even though they're wearing a mask, and, all those types of things. So our bus drivers agreed to, take their temperature. And we have had some cases where children want to come to school and they get on that bus and they have 102 temperature, and the bus driver has had to call parents and the school and, just say, I'm sorry, We are getting installed now a device on the bus. We have them here, is that correct, Mr. Martin? Where a child puts up their hand and it will take their temperature. The problem with the handheld thermometer is that in the cold weather it doesn't read well. So we had a bus driver with a temperature of 105, and so he went back in his house and just did the regular, and it was normal. So, you know, these cold mornings, we don't always get a good read, and so the bus driver is now taking, Mr. Mooney asked them to take the thermometer inside the home and then do it that way. But we're delighted to have that, because all the student does is stand, you know, step on the bus, you know, put their hand up to the scanner, and that will read their temperature. So I think what we will begin, the logistics, I think that's what we heard from a consensus of the board, looking at the data at the same time and seeing what the data, I think that's what's going to drive any decision that the board has. We may not be ready this year to bring the students back 4 days a week. And it's difficult when there are CDC guidelines and science guidelines not to follow those. I think that's...
Are we also able to gather or collect the data from some of the other local school districts that are back to 4 days a week? I think there's, well, I know Wise voted on it. They haven't started back yet.
Right.
But monitoring them, I think Buchanan County may be doing it, Norton City, and seeing how, you know, I mean, it's just good, you know, knowledge to have.
It is.
And if it's working in other districts.
Today, in our Region 7 meeting, we went around, and there are some schools that have started 4 days, and now they have, they seem to be doing okay. Some school divisions have had to either close a school or schools for 2 weeks, and perhaps they've been in school since after Labor Day. So you have a whole range of gamut, but I think you're absolutely correct, just to see what happens in other school divisions, because that's really a snapshot of what can happen in Dixon County. And that's our other thought about waiting till the end of the 9 weeks and then letting the board look at the data, look at the plan, change, you know, whatever, and then either approve it or not approve it, or just that we're not ready. You know, if I feel and our staff feels we're not ready, then certainly we'll bring that to you. We're just, the data doesn't support us going back. Other questions or comments or? Okay. Mr. Setzer, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
That brings us down to E, update on new elementary school project.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Ellswick and Mr. Quisenberry to come to the front, please. They're going to report on the site. And you have, oh, I'm sorry. You have before you the report, and then also a proposed school design. And so if we need to move.
Thank you very much.
Good to be here.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us back to provide an update on the new elementary school. And I do appreciate Abe Questenberry being here and representing his team, and it's been a team effort so far, and I'm glad he's able to participate in presentations as well. We've been making a lot of good progress over the past month. The team has been working very diligently. There have been many phone calls and meetings and information passed back and forth. But the end of last month, the Questenberry's team provided schematic design documents, which we consider 35% design. Those documents were reviewed by Skanska and the school system, and we've had several meetings to review those, discuss the design, provide feedback. I know the central office and the principals participated in that, provided some very valuable feedback, and so we've made some adjustments to the floor plans and the design to accommodate their requirements and their requests. And that's important because we want to make sure that the design, which we'll show you the floor plans here shortly, work for the school system, meets the needs, but also one of the due diligence activities is make sure that it's going to fit on the site. And right now we feel very comfortable that we can check that box and that it will. And so the design is continuing. As the design continues, there's other due diligence efforts going on. There's been we're evaluating the soil conditions. Nothing negative right now has come back to cause any pause there. We've been locating utilities. A couple of those we found the hard way. Manually located. But that seems to be in place. All the utilities have been found and located now, which is good news. And we've also been working through the environmental review process, the NEPA process. That we have got a few comments back from federal agencies that have been very minor. There's nothing that's caused any alarm. And I think that process, the review period ends probably in the next week.
It's coming up pretty close.
Next week or two. And at that point, we have all comments in and evaluate whether there's anything significant that we need to be concerned about or address. So far, nothing of concern there, which is really good news. Because we can't start construction until all that's out of the way. We've also been working with VDOT, talking about traffic patterns on the campus, around the campus. They requested that we do a traffic study, which is not unusual. They usually require those in most any project. So we've engaged A&T to start that study. I think that study should be complete by around the end of October, is what we're hearing. And we'll have the results back. We'll share that with VDOT and continue those conversations. We've been doing a lot of other things. We've been talking about playground equipment and planning for where that may go. We've started actually planning for furniture and equipment and what those layouts might look like, and getting a list of all those needs. Technology, the same way. We've been even talking about toilet accessories. So we've been talking about a lot of things. But the process is going very well. The design is continuing. We haven't seen anything that causes us any reason to stop at this point. And so our next milestone is having what we call design development drawings, or 65% design by the end of October. Next month, about the time for the next board meeting. So we'll be able to provide and share more information at that time. But the design is continuing on. We feel really good about it. We're working through the estimates to make sure we're still within budget. Right now, as of this week, we feel pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're going to have the schematic design estimates back, should be by the end of the week on Friday. So, and so far, everything looks to be in line, but we'll have that information Friday to share with you.
So with that, we'll pause and see if you have any more questions. We do want to share the latest floor plans and some of the elevations and kind of show you the progress that's been made over the past month. But I want to see if you have any questions as far. Or Dave, if I missed anything.
No, thank you, Cotton. It's been a pretty good collaborative process. I think we've had some good Q&A sessions and went through the programming, and so far it's progressing as planned. So.
I'm going to blow that up in a minute. I guess I'll start with the elevations. So the middle picture there, that's actually the front of the elementary school, which is on that side of Bridgeview, on the back side of Bridgeview. And that's kind of the northeast corner, so it's kind of hard to see, but there we go. So the main doors will be right here. So there'll be a parking lot out there, as you saw last month. Students, parents, public will go through this area here, a lot of glass here. This is the administrative wing. So they would come in, I'll show you the floor plans, go into a vestibule, secure vestibule, into a waiting area. The principal's office, guidance, all that will be in this corner. There's a classroom on the second floor here. Classrooms and gym and all that will be down this wing, then classrooms down this way. The bottom picture is a rendering of the back of the school, which is the front of the current Ridgeview Middle School, High School. This is where the buses would come around and drop kids off and pick kids up in the mornings and afternoons. They would go through these doors here, through a main corridor, into the school. This is art kind of area. Over here would be the dining area, and then the kitchen will be on the end. But again, I wanted to show you these to show that it fits in well with the look of Ridgeview. It'll continue to progress, but the colors, the materials, seems to be going well. It definitely is not going to be an eyesore on the campus, which is kind of a concern. Anyway. Any questions about those? And if not, I'll jump into the floor plans. Make sure this thing works. It's still an eye chart, but so 2 levels to the school, of course. This is the first floor on the left here. This is where parents, public, students would enter into the school, to a secure vestibule. They get buzzed into a waiting room, have to check in. All this blue area is the admin space. There's an SRO right here at the front entrance as well that can look out the window and monitor the entrance. We have an attendance clerk. We have a teacher's workroom. These are all classrooms. There's one on the end here that's a transition classroom, pre-K transition classroom. And you go down the hall this way, all this in this color here, these are classrooms, game toilets for girls and boys. All the way down, this is the music, art kind of area. Get down at the bottom here, this is where students would come in the mornings, so the buses are picked up in the afternoons. This is the main corridor where they would come down through here, but this is the dining area. This is the kitchen, which is the layouts for the kitchen. The equipment's being worked out right now. And what makes this is kind of unique, and this came from, I think, that visited the elementary school in West Virginia, that I think intrigued some folks, is that the dining area is here. There's a stage in between, and then this is the gymnasium. At one time, we had the gymnasium kind of going long ways here to try to save square footage, but it seemed to work out to where we flipped it, or the design team flipped it, and made it work to where these stands in here, you could be watching ball games or whatever, but you could also watch things happening on stage. This stage actually has movable partitions on both sides, one side on the dining, one on the gym side, so that you could close one off, open one up, so that you could have it open to the dining area, or you could shut it, open one for the gym area there as well, or open both or close both, keep it closed off. So it's a pretty unique concept that we've incorporated here. If you move to the second floor, it's mainly classrooms. All these in these colors on both wings are classrooms. I forgot to mention there is some special ed space on both floors. This is therapy spaces. There's some other spaces right here. So there's special ed that's being accommodated on both floors. I think Denisha seems pretty lucky to get everything she needs. She's here to she can get up and down. But these are mainly classrooms and some other, teacher workroom spaces are here in blue. Some other we call them pull-out spaces that can be used for like conference room space or whatever you want to need it for. So I know the directors and the central office feel like we have given them what they need to operate the school. There is one thing we did in the discussions is we added a classroom. We actually added a classroom up on the second floor. We had a classroom here that became a pre-K transition classroom. We added a classroom here. So there are 24 regular classrooms plus a transition classroom, which makes it 25, which seems to accommodate the number of students and the needs for the
think you covered it pretty well. I mean, this has been a lot of back and forth with Superintendent Robinson and the faculty and staff. We've worked hard to try to fit the program in there, and I think this latest iteration is a good example of those efforts, and hopefully we've kind of checked all the boxes of what we need to be. So.
Any questions for us? That concludes our presentation.
The only floor change you made was related to the lower floor of the stage.
Yeah, I think we originally had a second grade classroom on that far upper left corner, and then we switched that to a transition, then we added a classroom on the second floor. So 2 through 5, I believe, is what we decided is now.
Just turn the gym around?
And we rotated the gym around, yeah.
Okay, thank
Our next item on our agenda is our update on our 2020-2021 10-day enrollment. And I'd like to ask Mr. Setzer to come to the front. And you have a copy of that in your packet.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Normally this is it's called a 10-day report. I guess it's more or less a 15-day report this time. These numbers are as of last Thursday, September 17th. I'd like to start with the last two columns on the right-hand side. If you look at the first darker column, you see August of 2019. Last year, at the end of August, we had 1,981 students. If you look right next to that, it says June. We ended the year with 1931. So during the last school year, we lost 50 students. As of last Thursday, if you look at the total right in the middle, we show 1,912 students. Does everybody have a copy?
Yes, they do. And this is the copy here.
Starting at the very first column, you can see each school. Cohort A are those students who are coming in on Monday and Tuesday. They would be virtual on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Cohort B are students who are virtual during the first half of the week and then come in on Thursday and Friday, and then you have the full remote. As I said, you have a total, at this time, we had a total of 1,912 students, which is approximately 20 students down from where we ended the year. You also see the column of no-shows. A no-show is students we were expecting to show up, but they did not. In this case, we're showing 9 no-shows. We know where all 9 of those students are. 6 or 7 are awaiting homeschool approval, and the other 2 are out of state. As far as pre-K, Clintwood Elementary School has 26 pre-K students, Irvington 14, and Sand Lake has 26 as well. These numbers change quite frequently on a daily basis, so we update the board at each board meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Are the two cohorts fairly even as far as the number, enrollment number that you have?
Cohort A, 560, cohort B, 468, so almost 100 difference. We currently have, well, as of last Thursday, a little over 1,000 in the cohorts and 800 and almost 900 full remote, so almost 50-50.
That's close to even, yeah.
And Mr. Hackney, sometimes when we put siblings together,
That unbalances
you know,
it.
one cohort or the other may have increased
Yeah.
because of that. Just for a point of reference, Our total pre-K enrollment in June 2020 was 97. Our pre-K enrollment this year, I'm sure it's 66, and I'm sure the pandemic had has had an impact on that.
And parents can elect not to send their children to pre-K, and certain kindergarten parents can elect not to send their children to kindergarten because of the age.
The loss of enrollment since last August of approximately 69 students, and Mr. Setzer, correct me if I'm wrong here, that's
It's been fairly, I guess, normal through the
normal.
years.
We don't, it's a number that we've seen, an average of a number that we've seen before. We usually do, for one, lose those students from August to August. The 19 students since June of 2020, since June 2020, not 2019, that's a little bit lower, I think. Would you agree, Mr. Setzer, or?
I would. To be honest with you, I'm pleasantly surprised that we had the number of kids show up that we have.
Right.
And of course, every time I say that, the potential for students to move at any time is always great, whether it's for economical reason or for COVID. Numbers just fluctuate continuously.
But the decrease in from 1 year, that's been a pretty typical number, and some of our former board members will recall that. Again, the numbers between the cohorts and the remote, that's a very fluid number. It changes constantly, day to day.
Are we seeing any trends of some of the remote or virtual students coming back to a hybrid model, or is that why it's fluctuating? Or it's not, or is it going the other way? Do you know?
It's both. Would you agree, Mr. Setzer?
I would, yes. It's not, there's movement almost on a daily basis, but it's not a great deal of movement.
And it's both ways,
Right.
Mr. Hackney.
It's challenging for the teachers to mark attendance, the schools to mark, because the state wants it reported whether they're present remote, present in person, so we have to mark it very specifically for the state on a daily basis, so that becomes challenging.
Sure.
Other questions for Mr. Setzer or comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is the Virginia Retirement Incentive. I've included that in your packet. This policy is one that DCPS policy GBO that is approved and discussed and approved by the board yearly. As you recall, the policy is on a year-to-year basis based on budgetary needs and those issues. At this time, we are asking the board to approve the retirement incentives for the 2020-2021 school year. Questions or comments?
Does anyone?
I would like to ask on number 3.
I'm
Is
sorry,
it-
what page are you on, sir?
On page 1 of the resolution on item number 3,
Okay. Yes, sir.
to be eligible for incentive, employees must have a minimum of 12 years VRS covered employment with the Dickinson County School Board. Is that the last 12? I mean, I know they got to have 12 years, but is there anything related to a consecutive before they leave?
Excuse me, just a moment. Let me see if, get a response for either Mr. Barton or Mr. Mullins. The question, Mr. Mullins, does it have to be consecutive? My first response is no, it does not, but.
So they would need, but they would need to, when they retire, they would need to be employed with DCPS. Okay.
Did that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone that would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Our next agenda item, I'd like to ask Mr. Mullins, is a discussion of inclement weather and virtual snow day schedule. This year, we are able to have a virtual snow day, and Mr. Mullins has asked me to say very quickly that it's for this year only. And but in discussions with Dr. Lane, he has approved, or he knows our schedule and has approved it. But I'd like to ask Mr. Mullins if he could just explain why this year, this particular, we can do this, and then I'll go through and explain the inclement weather related closures.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Members of the board, as Ms. Robinson said, we stress for this year only because we all know that once we start something, we kind of think that's the way it is, and we want to continue on with that. But Ms. Robinson asked me to kind of touch on the length of school term requirement for the state, and then the waiver process. So I've got some notes here because I don't want to leave out anything or mess this up, but if you'll bear with me just a minute. Section 22.1-98 of the Code of Virginia states that the length of the school term for every school and every school division shall be at least 180 teaching days or 990 teaching hours in any school year. We're very familiar with this. We do this annually. We plan a 180-day calendar each and every year, and we're always able to get the 990 instructional hours, with the exception of last year. Of course, that hit every school division in the state. So that's the code. We're familiar with that. There's some other things required in that, but that's the two biggest overarching pieces of that code section. If the length of the term falls below 180 teaching days or 990 teaching hours in any school year and the division is unable to make up or recover that time, the Commonwealth will reduce the basic aid funding according to the deficit in teaching time. There are allowances for emergencies, including a declared state of emergency. So if we were not able to get 180 days or 990 hours, most likely our basic aid from the state would be cut. Last year, the 2019-2020 school year, after school buildings were closed by the state on March the 13th, each school division in the state was granted a waiver for the length of the school term. Again, we're all very familiar with that. Virginia State Superintendent Dr. James Lane sent out a memo on August 28th addressing the length of the school term requirements for the 2020-2021 school year. In his memo, he states that the required hours can be met with a variety of types of instruction to include in-person, synchronous, asynchronous, or remote learning. Dr. Lane stated there would be broad flexibility for the 180-day, 990 instructional hour requirement this year. For any school division unable to offer 180 teaching days and 990 teaching hours to each student in the brick and mortar setting, so that's the key words here, in the brick and mortar setting, any school division that cannot do that will be required to submit a length of school term waiver in order to avoid any reduction in basic state aid. Waivers will be favorably considered based on the following criteria. 1, submission of periodic reports over the duration of the school year that include information about instructional delivery. 2, certification from the division superintendent that the school division has provided and completed instruction that aligns with the standards of learning and course requirements. 3, certification that the school division has met the minimum required time for core instruction. And of course, core instruction includes English, math, science, and history. At the elementary school, that requirement is 680 hours, and at the middle school, that requirement is 560 hours. And then 4th, submission of the school division's instructional plan as executed for the 2020-2021 school year. So we had to submit an instructional plan before we started. At the end of the year, as changes may occur, as you all just discussed, a possible change that may occur in the upcoming month, that will need to be updated, and we will submit that plan again at the end of the year and throughout the year as changes are made. Important to remember that this flexibility is for the 2020-2021 school year only. At this time, this is not an ongoing every year option for our school division. So I think the key part here is the brick and mortar setting. Most school divisions in the state will not be going in the brick and mortar setting every day for 180 days. I don't know of any, but I don't know that to be a fact, but I imagine the majority, if not all, will not be doing that. So we have this flexibility this year. We're doing virtual days now. We have some students that are doing 5 remote days. We have some students that are doing 3 remote days. So that's factoring into this. That would allow a snow day to fall into the same kind of category as a remote learning day. And we would be able to include those hours in our reports to the state. Now, who knows what will come of this and what changes may come about with the General Assembly, and if remote learning or virtual learning days will become something that we do every year. I'm sure that's a possibility. We'll take it. But for now, we want to stress that this is for this year only.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Mullins?
I know that we looked at a code red category there. What would be the difference as far as, I mean, if, let's say if teachers were not able to make it in, is that what the code red would signify?
A code red, we've had a code red in our policy for several years now. And basically right now, code red would be the school buildings are closed, and it would continue to be as well. Mr. Hackney, the school buildings would be closed, and only those that needed to be called in, which may be maintenance crew, custodial crew, administrators, would come in. But generally, the buildings would be closed and no one would be required to come in.
So theoretically, you could still have a virtual day if a teacher was at home too. They could do instruction from home.
Not
theoretically, but I think our plan would be, because of the equipment, the internet access, those type of things, if we were to go full remote or virtual, that the teachers would still come into the building. And I think there's an option in this virtual learning day of, it's not called a code red, but it's a code 0 or 1.
0 or 1. Yeah.
0 or 1.
0 or 1.
Yes.
A code red day, and just for those of us that remember 2009, when we had the ice storm, snowstorm for for several weeks, no power, that would be a code red. I think, and I'm reminded that this often, and I think in the last 5 years we might have had one code red.
So those are very rare.
Yeah, very rare. But as you look at the inclement weather and related closure, of course, just looking at weather that would just be very dangerous. No power, ice, snow. Schools are closed and no employees report to work. On call or report as needed would be the division superintendent, directors, building administrators, maintenance, and custodial staff. Only on call and report as needed. Then we looked at a code 0, and that would be schools are closed. Virtual learning day is canceled. The weather is such that, and I'm not sure how, we'll just have to work through this, but it's, the roads and the weather are such that it's not safe for our staff members, our teachers, to report to work. So that would be a code red. Code 1, we would still have schools closed. In that situation, it would be dangerous to have our buses on the road. Our teachers could still report to work, and we would call that code a virtual learning day. As you see, 12-month employees would report at 9, and our teachers would report at 9:45, and then we would have a virtual learning day from 10 to 3. A 2-hour delay would mean that we would delay the beginning of school for 2 hours. So at 8:30, our maintenance, custodial staff, 12-month employees would report to work. 9:30, our staff and faculty would report to work. Now they have to report at 7:30. And then the school day would be from 10 to 3. And then weather-related early release, if we have to be dismissed an hour or 2 hours early in the afternoon, then of course our teachers would leave after all of our schools have departed, unless our building administrators need further supervision. So this is our proposed inclement weather-related closure. This is a document also that we've discussed with all of our central office staff and all of our building principals, and we took feedback and input from them about that. The virtual learning day, again, our staff would report to work, but we hope that we would have enough flexibility and agility here that, we're not going to endanger the life of any of our staff members or any child. You'll notice that the 3-hour delay is no longer here, and quite frankly, that was probably not needed here, because we're trying to get the hours in since we've started later in the school year, and we don't know exactly what the year will bring. So we want to make sure that while we can still waive the hours, we want to try to provide as much of an instructional environment for our children.
Now, the decision make for the 3-hour delay not be an option, is that something that came down from the state level?
No, that was just looking at
that
was just a
locally?
proposed. This is what we're proposing here.
If we have a weather situation where, there is a little difference between a 2-hour and a 3-hour delay that you could be able to go. If we've got a situation that would have been a 3-hour delay or needed a 3-hour delay, we would more than likely be looking at a Code 1 virtual day this year then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the 3-hour delay, a decision had to be made by 8:30, because we had to accommodate our working parents and all those things, so which we wanted to do. So really, many days, as you know, we would call, it looked horrible at 8:30, and then by 10 o'clock, it was great.
Mm.
And so, if we could have a virtual day and still have our staff safely report to school and have a snow day, virtual day, and count the hours, I think that's a win-win for all of us. Again, this is just a proposal for the board to consider. I know that I sent this to you last week, but certainly the board could take more time to look at it or make suggestions. My idea about sending this to you today and putting this on the agenda was that we have had snow days in October. I don't know this year what it will be, but we have had days like that. And the other reason was that it will take us a little bit of time to communicate all this with our parents, and Mr. Mullins, who's the voice of Dickson County announcements, graciously volunteers to do that every year, by the way. He needs to get himself ready to communicate whether this is a code 0 or code 1 or 2-hour delay. So, but again, if the board needs more time, we certainly understand that.
Do we anticipate, I guess with the virtual learning day being an option, our students are going to pretty much have to hold on to those devices all the time, even if we get back into a 4-day week?
Yeah. They're pretty much
just so that they have a device at home to pull off a virtual learning day?
That's happening now, but with a 4-day, now, and I'm sure it's going to be difficult, they just bring that, with the 3-day, they just take the device back and home, back and forth. So yes, you're correct. It would become another textbook.
Yeah. Okay with it? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to adopt this with the cost now.
I'll second.
Motion and second to accept this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Our next item on the agenda is the request for proposal for telemed services, as proposed by Dr. Potter. After further research and discussion with our school board attorney, we felt that it would be the best for Dickson County School Board to go out for procurement for the services of a telemed provider. And so we are requesting authorization to procure and post a request for proposal for telemed services for the Dickson County schools. I know that Dr. Potter, he shared with me that he would be completing a request for proposal on this, but we do need to go through this other step. And Mr. Mullins, is there anything you would like to add to that, sir?
No, I think when we first met with Dr. Potter and we heard his presentation, we were all impressed and we wanted to participate. And I'd hoped that the relationship would be between Dr. Potter and the patients, much more akin to a normal doctor-patient relationship. Unfortunately, the way it needed to work is there had to be a contract between the school system and Dr. Potter, and whenever we contract with someone in a way that allows them to make money, even though they wouldn't be billing the school system, it would be Medicare, Medicaid, we have to allow other people to have equal access to those opportunities, and that's what the procurement laws are about. And so Dr. Potter will certainly be welcome to present, and we don't know if we'll get any other interest in it, but it's a step in law that we have to comply with. It's not really discretionary.
So we will visit this again after we get proposal or proposals back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. At this time, we just need a motion, Dr. Lyle, to approve to go out for an RFP for telemed services.
I move we approve
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And our last item on the agenda is the discussion of the Mill Street property in the town of Clinchco. And we've all been working hard to try to find who the owner is, Mr. Hackney, and we're not quite has been successful. We've even employed Mr. Rasnick to be the sleuth for that, but I'll let you have that agenda item, sir.
Well, I apologize it was so difficult. I had some suspicion that it would be just based on, you know, some of the informal information I received. I did go to Clinchco Town Council meeting, and there was some people there that night, especially some of the citizens that had lived there for a while that did recall, I guess maybe a mobile one-room schoolhouse being on that site back in the 60s. So it did make sense that this was something that you know, DCPS, the school board had owned at some point, or still does, and just, you know, had not, you know, formally been involved in keeping up. I did communicate with Mr. Mullins this week, who did speak to Mr. Baker, the town of Clinchco attorney. And I guess if you want to speak on where we are with that.
Sure. You know, it's interesting. You think you would know what you own as an entity, but the reality of it is every so often we get the gas company will send us a notice that there's a small tract of land in the middle of the world or somewhere on a ridge. There used to be a one-room school, and we own that land. And so basically a long time ago, when we were Dickinson County was collapsing down their smaller schools, there wasn't a lot of paperwork done. They just basically went on to the new school. And so as a result of that, there's some gaps in the paperwork. There used to be a joke among the older attorneys that if you wanted to know who owned the land, you cut down a tree and somebody would come out within 15 minutes and tell you you didn't have a right to do that. But you know, we want to be efficient. We want to be good neighbors, and certainly if the town of Clinchco can put this to good use and put a little effort and maybe a little money into fixing it up, I think that's something that each of you would want to support. And so you know, we may try to work a little bit with their public officials at the various clerk's office or Commissioner of Revenue's office or some of those mapping officials and see if we can find anything out. Ordinarily, just to make sure you're clear on this, it would be easy if we were just a private entity. We would just do a quitclaim deed. It would just do a deed to the town of Clinchco, and it says, we're not saying we own it, but to the extent we have any rights there, you can have our rights. And that way, you know, we'd just be done with it. But we have laws that deal with surplus property for land. And if we have surplus property, the way it works is we have to declare it surplus and get it back over to the Board of Supervisors, because we as a school system are not empowered to make a gift. We can sell real property, but we can't make gifts. The Board of Supervisors can make gifts. So if this was ours, what we would do is declare it to be surplus, get it to the Board of Supervisors, and I'm sure the Board of Supervisors would share the desire to want to get this to the town of Clinchco. But it's mostly just getting a handle on you know, what we own, and if we do own something, what the legal description of that property is. And so to the extent our friends in Clinchco have a vested interest in making this happen, if they can come up with a deed or a property description, we'll certainly work with them any way we can.
Is there anything we need to do now?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything we need to do now?
No, I think that, you know, the way I'm reading this board is that, if I'm reading it wrong, please let me know, but each of you would be willing to make this happen. It's just a matter of getting the paperwork together so we can make it happen. And so if that's where we are, we will move forward just trying to be efficient and not spend a lot of money chasing dead ends, and see if we can't bring it back before you.
So this is more for our information at this time than anything else, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're not really in a position to take action on it, that's for sure.
Okay.
Just want to thank Mr. Hackney and also Mr. Rasnick. He's been on the he's been on the patrol here trying to.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody that looked into it. I know there's lots of different avenues.
Trying to find the person or the persons.
Erica Williams actually worked there a few years ago to rehab that. We worked with Mr. Whitaker down there, and I was under the impression then it belonged to the church, but obviously that I didn't know that. But we did work there and help them out. This goes back probably 10, 15 or 20 years, I guess now. Yeah. It's a neat little place there, a nice playground. I'm sure it'll be something
Very beneficial to the town.
very beneficial to the people there.
Dr. Lyle and board members, that does conclude the open session agenda items.
That
Thank
brings us down to board comment then. Anyone have a comment?
I'd just like to give them hats off and thank all the administration, and all the teachers, and everybody who's been involved in this very rare circumstances of school opening. And I just admire everybody for what they've done. They've worked very hard.
Well, I would echo Mr. Bones' statement, and I would also throw in our parents and students in there. You know, they must have, what all I've heard, they've done a good job about wearing masks and do what they're asked to do, and very cooperative and very supportive in that. So I would like to thank them.
Well, I think we're looking forward to increasing school attendance.
I think that Mr. Radchick has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess Mr. Hackney will too. I'd like to echo what Jason and Rick have said, but also the grandparents out there, probably the great-grandparents on this. But it certainly takes a lot of people to make this work well, and I know we've been blessed to have the good things happen that have happened. It's always a challenge. I don't care what school you're in, what area of this country you're in, this state. It's a challenge to bring children together and take them forward in a good way and protect them and take care of them. This is so different, and I have had, heard requests about what's best to do, and I don't really know myself. I have mixed emotions about this. All I know is I hope that the superintendent and all the employees and families obey the rules. We have the local health department, we have the regional health department, we have the Virginia Department of Health, and Ms. Robinson has the state superintendent and the state Board of Education, as well as the folks here to deal with, and we need to stay and always keep in mind whom we serve and how we serve them is pretty important. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and everybody taking care to do exactly the right thing as best they can.
Well, I don't really have a lot to say. Everybody has said what I was going to say, so I'll echo the echoes. Just much appreciation to all of our DCPS staff. Like Jason said, the students and parents too. This has been a difficult last few months. And we're just like every community has its problems and has its struggles, but our community is really blessed, and just to always keep that in mind.
Okay, it's time to go into closed session. I move we enter closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711, paragraph A of the Code of Virginia, for the purpose of 1, employment issues relating to discussion or consideration of specific individuals for employment as a bus driver, substitutes, FMLA, requests, coaches, resignations, post advertise for part-time teacher aides, part-time cooks. And 2, student requests for early graduation. 3, discussion of rental fees for Brick Flats Mobile Storage and former Clinchville Elementary, former Career Center site. And 4, to consult with legal counsel and receive briefing by staff members pertaining to actual litigation with Board of Supervisors and IDA regarding the location of the proposed new elementary school pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A 1, 2, 4, and 7 of the Code of Virginia. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're now in closed session.